Today, I'm going to explain a TV series filled with action and suspense called Island. Spoilers ahead. Watch and enjoy. The story starts on Jeju Island, originally known as Tamra Island, where inhabitants coexisted in peace. But chaos and conflict soon took hold, and to stop dangerous monsters from getting out, the blood of 46 special children was sealed inside stone statues. To protect the statues, fake ones were made, but some of them were secretly given a dark power by a mysterious creature. Back in Seoul, chaebol heiress Miho has become a viral sensation after a scandalous video set up by her spiteful aunt is taken out of context. Due to this, Miho is forced to seek refuge on Jeju Island as a PR stunt for her company, accompanied by Secretary Kong and butler Jang. As she arrives in Jeju, she is shocked when she encounters a lust demon bride, who's in the middle of gorging on a human. As Miho runs for her life, she gets cornered in a delivery van. Being no match for a powerful demon, the demon easily tears into the van with its bare claws. Inches away from reaching Miho, a mysterious figure showed up to save her, our immortal protagonist, who is named Van. Before she can thank her savior, Miho loses consciousness, waking up back in her bed with her worried right-hand men fussing over her. When Miho learns that Secretary Kong was in cahoots with her aunt, she is utterly devastated and bravely confronts Kong, declaring that they'll go their separate ways from now on. As she walks away, Secretary Kong gets possessed by a lust demon, and once again Miho's life is put in danger. Luckily, before the lust demon can do any damage, Van arrives with his impressive display of swordsmanship that slashes the demon-possessed Secretary Kong to pieces. After all the dust has settled, Van explains to Miho that these creatures are lust demons, embodiments of evil that usurp human forms to leech off the land. They'll follow her to the ends of the earth because it's written into her destiny, just like it's Van's destiny to protect Miho. Back when he was a child, Van was forcibly taken into a monastery. The head monk, looking for a powerful weapon against demons, gathered the children that he'd taken in, sliced their backs open, and poured demon blood into them. Only 2 boys survived that horrific ordeal, Van and his brother Gungtan. Van and Gungtan were forced to wield mystical daggers and undergo harsh training, all for the sake of eradicating demons and saving humans until one Jong, a young girl training as a priestess, freed them. Just as they were almost free from their prison, the boys were recaptured when Van turned back to get One Jong medical treatment. Years later, One Jong reincarnates as the chaebol heiress Miho, unaware of her true identity. Amidst the trials and tribulations of Miho and Van, our last main character is introduced, Priest Johan, a renowned young exorcist from Italy. Teaming up with butler Jang to combat the lust demons, Johan joins Miho's inner circle, even living in her house under the guise of butler Jang's nephew. As Miho faces relentless attacks, Van repeatedly comes to her rescue, and realizing the demons aren't going to stop, Miho asks Van to be her personal bodyguard. But as Miho grows closer to Van, Johan's suspicions about Van's true nature deepen, especially as Johan can feel there is something not altogether human living inside Van. In the next scene, one of Miho's students, Yeon-ji, reaches out to Miho about her friend Seryun, who is being abused by her boyfriend. Miho decides to check on Seryun, and with Johan's help, they quickly learn that Seryun is actually possessed by a demon named Benjuli. What starts out as a simple exorcism quickly escalates into a full-on battle. Thankfully, Van sensed Miho was in danger and followed their tracks. After a fierce battle, where Johan showed his amazing fighting skills, they ultimately rescue Seryun, and justice is served. In the aftermath, Van explains that Benjuli was contaminated by lust devils and it was all done to target Miho, which naturally adds to Miho's feelings of guilt. At the house, Miho has started to develop feelings for the emotionally distant Van, but things change when tensions arise between Van and Johan. As emotions get heated, Miho sees Van transform into a demon as he struggles with his primal instincts and keeping his human and demon sides in balance. Confused and hurt, Miho reaches out to Van, but gets rejected. Meanwhile, an evil fox demon has emerged and is causing chaos on Jeju Island by targeting victims for their livers. In the midst of the crisis, Johan's tragic past is revealed. As children, he and his brother, who is named Chon-hee, were abandoned and exploited for their livers. While Johan found solace in the church, Chon-hee endured poverty and pain. In the present, while trying to do a nice thing for Johan, Miho reunites the brothers, unaware that Chon-hee has turned into the fox demon under Gungtan's influence. When Johan learns about his brother's identity, he tries but fails to exorcise him. In the end, Johan steps in when the fox demon tries to attack Miho, delivering a fatal blow to his own brother. Van finally explains it all to Miho. She's the reincarnation of Wonjong, who had the power to repair the broken barrier between the mortal realm and the demon one. As such, the lust demons are trying to kill Miho before she can awaken her power. As a flashback, we see Wonjong negotiate for the freedom of Van and his brother, which ends in a deadly confrontation with the head monk, in which the brothers tap into their dormant demon blood to survive. Chaos ensues as Wonjong hesitates to complete the barrier ritual, scared by seeing Van as a demon. Van and Gungtan battle over Wonjong's fate, which results in Van inadvertently hurting her. With her dying breath, Wonjong promises to return and save him. Her passing triggers a surge of energy, forcing the lust demons, including Gungtan, back into the portal. Centuries later, Gungtan is accidentally released from his prison by a shaman's mistake and meets Yul, who reveals a sinister plan to eliminate Wonjong. Meanwhile, Miho finally accepts her fate to take on the role of Wonjong and seal the lust demons, so she enlists the help of Granny Jiam, who has witnessed the passage of time and helped Van in his mission against darkness. During training, Gungtan tries to approach Miho and, in the face of danger, Miho unleashes a powerful energy burst, forcing Gungtan to retreat but draining Miho in return, as Van and Johan rush to her side. They see her protected by a force field. As Miho recovers, Van catches her, reminiscent of Wonjong's death. After this whole ordeal, Granny Jiam warns Van to control his emotions as Miho is destined to change once Wonjong's memories inevitably return. So, while seeking refuge in a villa, Van tries to create distance, but Miho can't help but be drawn to their connection. Elsewhere, Gungtan is corrupting spirits and causing chaos and tragedy. Specifically Sir-yoon, yes, the high school student from before and also one of Yeongji's friends, tragically walks off the school rooftop before Yeongji can save her. Although Yeongji is consumed by grief over the loss of her friend, flashbacks reveal that it was Gungtan who saved her from her abusive father, bonding her to him. When Gungtan summons Gyu-sun-si, turning the school into a demon nightmare, Johan leads a mass exorcism to the students within the school grounds. In the midst of chaos, Gungtan also manipulates Miho by exploiting her grief and guilt, sowing doubt, and targeting her vulnerability. When Miho ends up questioning Butler Jang's loyalty, he reveals his true identity as a priest, confessing that he wants to awaken Wonjong. Devastated by betrayal, Miho teeters on the edge of the balcony, contemplating taking her own life. Just as she's about to fall, it looks like Wonjong catches her, flooding her with memories. Holding Miho's hand, Van protects her as Gungtan attacks. When Van shields Miho from a dagger, they both fall off the balcony. Gungtan, still unable to take out his enemies and filled with uncontrollable anger, goes on a rampage, mercilessly slaughtering his remaining followers as they flee in panic. Meanwhile, in a cave somewhere, Van regains consciousness and is relieved to find Miho embracing him. Though his healing powers are weakened, his wound isn't fatal, so Miho rests her head on Van's shoulder and asks about his stone towers. In a previous scene, we see Van and Gungtan meet in their former cell, Gungtan questioning why Van chooses to still live there. Van admits finding comfort in the familiarity and Gungtan cynically mocks Van's stone memorials for the dead, conveniently ignoring his own role in the tragedy. Van realizes and confronts Gungtan on the fact that he sends lust demons after Miho because he fears facing her himself. Because the void where Gungtan was sealed offered no time, pain, or even the ability to think. Escaping the massacre at Gungtan's lair, Yeongji rushes to Granny Jeom, urgently warning her about Gungtan and begging her to run. Surprisingly, Granny Jeom reveals that she has known about Yeongji's connection to Gungtan all along but decided to take her in any way. When Gungtan uses Yeongji as bait to lure Granny Jeom to his den, he demands to know the locations of the remaining rock statues in exchange for sparing Yeongji's life. Just in the nick of time, Johan arrives, but he is unable to stop Gungtan from stabbing Granny Jeom. Sensing trouble, Van swiftly seals Miho inside the cave for her safety and sets off to confront his brother. As Van reaches the underground den, he finds Granny Jeom and Johan on the verge of death. In a powerful vision, Granny Jeom's spirit visits Van, while Wonjong appears in front of Miho, both revealing a stunning truth. There is a magical pearl inside Miho. Apparently, there is also a pearl fragment that had entered Van's body when he hurt Wonjong, and now Miho must get it back in order to create a protective barrier, even if it means suppressing Van's demonic blood. Although Miho learns that creating the barrier on her own will take a toll on her soul, even maybe costing her her life, she's determined to save Van. Turns out, Van is also willing to abandon his humanity and become a demon if it means saving Miho. After this realization, a monstrous demon suddenly appears to confront Miho. Luckily she is saved just in time by a well-aimed gunshot from Butler Jang. Miho's training in shooting finally pays off as she and Butler Jang valiantly fight against the horde of demons. Healed by his powers, Johan shows up and saves Miho from yet another demon and, as Miho begins her barrier ritual, Van joins her, holding her hand and attempting to retrieve the fragment from his own eye. Amidst this intense moment, Van and Gungtan have their climactic final battle. Although Gungtan manages to impale Van, Van stabs Gungtan with his broken sword. When Miho finally successfully finishes the barrier, she causes the demon markings on their bodies to recede, which ultimately leads to the disintegration of the two brothers. The series leaves us with one last cliffhanger as the White Cloak cult resurfaces, manipulating Yeongji's mind to retrieve a concealed dagger. Meanwhile, Johan, burdened with demons taunting him, returns to Vatican City and, despite struggling with the psychological aftermath and trauma of the events on Jeju Island, Miho goes back to Seoul to take on the role of company president. But, back on Jeju Island, Yeongji's retrieval of the dagger triggers a powerful energy shift, unsettling Van's dagger and prompting Miho to call upon Johan for help. At the end of the last episode, Miho and Johan are preparing themselves to once again embark on a mission to save the world, leaving the door open for a follow-up season.